Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
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 Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
I don't understand because it just doesn't hold, or I probably have not done. We just chanted this mantra. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda, whose names are kind of missing in this mantra if we speak about in terms of Panchatattva.
Srivasa.
Yeah, we are actually celebrating today or commemorizing the disappearance day of a great sage, great devotee, Srivasa Thakur, who is a member of Sri Panchatattva, standing there. Interestingly enough, during this appearance day of Srivasa Thakur, I was giving lecture as well this year, and now I'm speaking on his disappearance. Quite a coincidence, but he is a great personality, and there is always plenty of things to speak about and to discuss on. We will today read a verse, kind of a couple of verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi-lila, chapter 17, verses 37-38. Ekajina vipranama gopala chapala pashandi pradhana se durmukha vachala bhavani pujara soba samagrilana ratre shrivasera dhvare sthano lepana ekajina. One day, Vipra, one Brahmana, Nama, named, Gopala Chapala, that was his name, no repeat, Pashandi Pradhana, the chief of non-believers, say, he, Durmukha, ferocious, using strong words. Vachala, talkative. Bhavani Pujara, for worshipping the goddess Bhavani. Sabha, all. Samagri, ingredients, paraphernalia. Lana, talking. Ratre, at night. Shivasera, of Srivasa Thakur. Dvare, on the door. Sthana, place. Lepana, smearing. Just check one thing. Translation interpreted by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Shri Prabhupada ki. one night, while Kirtana was going on inside Srivasa Thakur's house, a Brahmana named Gopal Chapal, the chief of the non-believers, who was talkative and very rough in his speech, placed all the paraphernalia for worshipping the goddess Durga outside Srivasa Thakur's door. Purport. This Brahmana, Gopal Chapal, wanted to defame Srivasa Thakur by proving that he was actually a Shakta, or a worshipper of Bhavani, the goddess Durga, but was externally posing as a Vaishnava. In Bengal, there is perpetual competition between the devotees of goddess Kali and the devotees of Lord Shri Krishna. Generally, Bengalis, especially those who are meat eaters and drunkards, you know. You sure? Okay. Yeah, good to know. I'm just kidding. Are very much attached to worshipping of goddess Durga, Kali, Sitala and Chandi. Such devotees, who are known as Shaktas or worshippers of the Shakti Tattva, are always envious of Vaishnavas. Since Srivasa Thakur was a well-known and respected Vaishnava in Navadvip, Gopal Chapala wanted to reduce his prestige by bringing him down to the platform of the Shaktas. Therefore, outside Srivasa Thakur's door, he placed various paraphernalia for worshipping Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, such as red flower and plantain leaf. I don't know what plantain means.
Banana.
Huh?
Banana.
Okay. Cool. A pot of wine and reddish sandalwood paste. In the morning, when Srivasa Thakur saw all this paraphernalia in front of his door, he called for the respectable gentlemen of the neighborhood and showed them that at night he was worshipping Bhavani. Very sorry, these gentlemen called for a sweeper to cleanse the place and purify it by sprinkling water. Right hand, sorry, I'm left hand. Sprinkling water and cow dung there. This incident concerning Gopal Chapal is not mentioned in the Chaitanya Bhagavata. It is mentioned today is the disappearance day of Srivasa Thakur, and even though in Shastra it is not that much explained how exactly he disappeared. Oh, Durga is there. No, nothing personal, you know. Yeah. So it's not that much explained how exactly he left this world, but what is more important, how he lived and what examples he showed to us, and more important, which learnings we can take from those pastimes. Because when I mentioned this mantra, Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhaktavrinda. So when we say Jai Gaura Bhaktavrinda, there is another mantra, Pancha Tattvatmakam Krishnam, Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam, Bhakta Avatara Bhaktakya, Bhaktakya, Namami, Bhakta Shaktikam. So Bhaktakya means one who represents all the bhaktas, all the devotees of the Lord, and he belongs to Jiva Tattva. And previously, during the appearance day of Srivasa Thakur, I was explaining from more like from a philosophical point of view his position, who he is, whom he represents. But just to recap a bit, that he is representing the Jiva Tattva, because without Jiva Tattva, without devotees, the Lord, even in all his manifestations, is incomplete, because the God is about love. That's the ultimate happiness, ultimate goal of the relationship with God. And this is why we have the full Panchatattva, and we have even Srivasa Thakur there. And on the previous lecture, not about Srivasa Thakur, but my literally previous lecture, I was talking about the glories of devotional service. Why it is crucial in our life. One second. Can I first the document? Yes, and Srivasa Thakur was an exemplary in the attitude to devotional service, how he valued that part of devotional life. He would always take initiative, so he organized his house, called Shiva Sangam, for bringing devotees and making them comfortable for performing Sankirtana Yajna. He would sometimes close the house for the night so that he wouldn't allow inappropriate people to come to pervade and to preserve the topmost saturated mood of chanting with taste. And interestingly, that there was a story once that the son of Srivasa Thakur, that's a very tricky story in a way, not always appropriate for telling it on the Sunday Feast lectures, but I will. That his son once got sick, and during the ferocious, like very enthusiastic kirtan in Shiva Sangam, when Lord Chaitanya was dancing in such an ecstasy, there was such a roaring kirtan, and then Srivasa Thakur saw that weeping ladies, and he went like to find out what is going on, and he got to know that his son died. And when he did, he said, please don't weep too much, we don't want to disturb, we don't want Lord Chaitanya to stop his kirtan. And it's an example what value, what priority Srivasa Thakur puts into devotional service. Because devotional service is not some kind of an employment, you know, someone asked me to do something and I was like, okay, I do it because you asked me or because you paid me something. No, devotional service is a privilege. It's something that one does when one feels love. And that's also something that one does in order to develop this love. And this is why, for example, one might think that it's also kind of a recap of the previous lecture, but a thought came interesting to my mind recently, that one may see some kind of a leader, you know, person on a leadership position, and that person is doing this, oh my God, he's just cleaning this, cleaning that, organizing here, worshipping here, doing kirtan here, oh my God, he's doing so much, he's such a great personality, he's such a leader. But then I thought, you know, it's not really about leadership. It's about being an obstacle for all of you. It's about being an obstacle because devotional service is a privilege. And if one just takes everything on themselves, then there is no space for other people to take part in that wonderful process of doing something for Krishna, doing something for Shishinitai Gaura Sundara. So that was kind of an interesting revelation I came up with recently. But today, because these topics I've covered more or less last time, I wanted to speak about something different and focus on that particular story that we read partially in that verse of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because yes, you know that Srivasa Thakur was, by the way, I mentioned that story and I mentioned that it's quite tricky. But I'm also expecting that someone will ask some question in the end of the lecture. Like, wait, please reveal that. But because it's not the topic of the lecture, so I will skip it now. I will leave it for some potential questions. But Srivasa Thakur was organizing this kirtan in Shiva Sangam and was very enthusiastic and initiative taking in that service. And even though there were plenty of people in that village where he lived who loved him, who trusted in him as a great devotee, there were still some people who worship Durga, but not there is something bad in worshiping Durga, not at all. But it's just kind of a coincidence that some people with some bad behavior had a tradition of worshiping Durga and making some kind of bloody sacrifices and many of these things, eating meat, drinking wine. And there were these kind of people who had a competition kind of with devotees of Krishna. And at that time it was still quite popular because Lord Chaitanya's movement of love, of bhakti, of chanting the holy name were just under development, but many other things already were popular in Bengal back then. Yeah, and there were these people who were kind of envious for the Srivasa Thakur, and they would go like, when you are envious for some person, and that person might even be a good person and doing some righteous things, right things, spiritual things, but if you're envious, you will still say, they are closing themselves there in that house, so they probably are calling some women to enjoy with them and not showing us what is going on there, so they're not letting us in to actually witness, even though you don't let me in, I know what you're doing there. So that's the way they were thinking. And in that way, they already always come up with any weird ideas and assumptions, speculations about what these guys there in Shiva Sangam are really doing. And we're gossiping with one another, sharing these ideas, negative, drinking some wine, having fun with ladies and everything. And the leader, kind of the most abominable person, even though coming from a Brahminical background, still was very much envious of Srivasa Thakur, because he got so much attention, because he was accepted and loved by a lot of villagers, and that's why he was even more envious. And once he decided to, as Prabhupada says, defame him. So he said, I will now, when everyone will fall asleep, I will go and put some paraphernalia there, so that people would see that actually he is a Durga worshipper, he eats meat and drinks wine, so that he wanted to twist everything, so that gossiping would spread across the village and no one would speak about Srivasa Thakur anymore. That was his goal. Because, when one is envious, one can start criticizing someone to actually exalt oneself at cost of defaming the other person. We'll come back to that. And what happens next? Who was the early bird, the first person who actually woke up in the early morning? It was Srivasa Thakur, and he opens his door and he sees everything there, standing like that red powders, like wine and all that. And he says, starts calling out to all the villagers, please, dear gentlemen, come here, respected gentlemen. Look at that fallen personality. What I'm doing here, I'm worshipping Bhavani, I'm drinking meat and eating wine. Yeah. But all the villagers became so embarrassed. Their hearts started like squeezing. They didn't know what to do. They wanted to just fall down through any crack in the earth because they felt so uncomfortable while seeing that Srivasa Thakur was kind of defaming himself, saying, "You see how falling and unworthy a person I am. From now on, you know." But they just called some sweeper so that he would come and cleanse everything from that, so everyone would forget what has happened, because no one could even imagine that, and no one would dare even think about Srivasa Thakur being connected in any way to something like this. But they started like thinking who that could actually potentially be, and they couldn't come up with who that was. But later on, Gopal Chapal, who actually the person was, he got the leprosy. He started like getting all the sores on his skin, you know, the nose falling apart, all those worms started having fun and feeling so nice in those sores, and getting fat, you know, while eating. Later on we will honor prasadam, so I guess you will forget about this story until then. But that story doesn't arise so much appetite when you listen about it. But the fact is there that he got that leprosy and started feeling all that pain, you know. Sometimes you watch some horror movies and you see something like that, you just turn it off because you cannot bear looking at that. But that was a real story, and upon like feeling this pain, that suffering, Lord Chaitanya was coming by, and he was actually going to take bath, and this time he decided to take a different path, because that person, because of getting leprosy, everyone started be frightened about him, to avoid any association with that person, because they were afraid that they would catch it, they would get cursed because of speaking with that person. They had no idea, but everyone just avoided him. So he just landed under some tree beside Ganga and started living there under this tree. And once Lord Chaitanya was coming by and decided to take a different path, and he was going by, and Gopal Chapal told him, "Oh, Lord Chaitanya, I heard that you are the personality of Godhead himself, and you are so merciful to all the living beings, and you are even my relatives in a way. So please, bereave me of that suffering. Please take that suffering, that leprosy away." Lord Chaitanya looked at him and said, he looked, but he said, "I don't even want to look at you. You did a terrible thing, and that's only the beginning. If you cannot bear this, what to speak about what is expecting you?" Because Lord Krishna, he loves his devotees so much that he says that I value my devotees even above Lakshmi Devi, above, like he counts like various great personalities like Ananta Shesha. because there is he shares the utmost level of loving relationship with his devotees. That's why, even though Krishna says samah sarveshu bhuteshu, I am equal to every living being, but he feels a special affection for his devotees. That's why if one blasphemes devotees, so it's not like blaspheming any other living being. You can act like sorry, but in this way, Krishna becomes what? Very, very upset. And yeah, so Lord Chaitanya just left. But later on, maybe some years, Gopal Chapal still was alive somehow. And Lord Chaitanya was again passing by, already being a sannyasi. And he was circumambulated with his followers, devotees. They were so enthusiastic, like Lord Chaitanya came. They were discussing, speaking about him, and associating with him. And then once there were some personality, like completely unrecognizable because of that leprosy and having it for so long, and he was like completely unrecognizable, and he approached, like fell down to his lotus feet with Dandavat, please my Lord, please save me, please bereave me of that suffering, I cannot bear that anymore. I've told you that I'm not gonna help you because you have committed such an aparadh. But my Lord, yes, I'm so fallen, I committed such a big mistake upon committing this aparadh to Srivasa Thakur. Lord Chaitanya said yes. And the only for you way is to go to him and ask for forgiveness, ask for mercy. If he is merciful to you, then we will speak. And he went to Srivasa Thakur and started begging for mercy, begging for forgiveness. But Srivasa Thakur, he never took it personally, because he's so sincere and humble. But Lord Chaitanya, Lord Krishna does take it personal, because it's his most affectionate persons, like Srivasa Thakur. But he said, okay, no problem. He gave forgiveness and everything, so everything was eventually sorted out. He understood, realized his mistake. But what is important about this story is to understand how dangerous on one hand it is to commit an offense to a devotee. But at the same time, interestingly, like nowadays we have such a tendency among devotees that previously it was spoken such a lot about oh, it's so dangerous, to commit aparadh, and this there is an example in Chaitanya Charitamrita about the mad elephant that is like tramping the flowers of bhakti, jumping on the sprout of bhakti. So this mad elephant is the aparadh. He just completely destroys our bhakti, our faith in Krishna. But nowadays, devotees started, there is at least not like all the devotees started doing this, but kind of a trend that some devotees started to get relaxed about criticizing other devotees. And saying, oh, I see that devotee is doing this, devotee is doing that. In a way, there should be some balance. Because we cannot just either completely avoid any criticism, any whether it's like a constructive criticism or unconstructive criticism. We cannot avoid it, because the crucial idea is that we perform devotional service together. We should cooperate, and Krishna wanted us to cooperate while doing the devotional service, while serving Krishna. Krishna enjoys when we do it together, when we find the common ground, we leave all the quarrels and misunderstandings, and we concentrate us around Krishna, because Krishna now is in the center, not we. That's something we are working on. And when Krishna is in center, then there is less space for any quarrel, misunderstanding, and negative feelings. So there should be some balance behind it. So when there is cooperation, there inevitably will be some kind of constructive feedback, so to say. But being relaxed about it, it's kind of a dangerous situation, because Shastras are explaining in which way. Mostly because the Lord, whom we want to satisfy, with whom we want to develop a deep and sweet relationship, will be deeply saddened because of that behavior. Do we want to make the object of our love to become deeply saddened? Yeah, he's nicking, so he wants. I'm just kidding. No, of course we don't. But then how to apply this in our life? Because Gopal Chapal is kind of an extreme example of being so envious, such a demonic, I will just defame him, and he was just, he was enjoying what he was doing. He was putting all that paraphernalia. He was like, I will see how people will react, I will see. And he was like enjoying that. Is that applicable to us here? Well, on one hand, no, because this example is kind of an extreme. But on the other hand, if we look deep inside the heart, we will see. Because sometimes we might be, and there might be some natural negative feeling about some person, or I don't like him. Why? Just because. Because get out of here, that's why. So that was just the reason why I don't like you. Of course, it's not the case, but just exemplifying. And if that is the case, then I will, I don't know, maybe I don't like how Shyamdalal looks externally, or maybe I don't like how that you are not tall enough. I'm just kidding. But then if I don't like, then it's irrational, but I will start rationalizing why I don't like, and I will find a lot of reasons why I don't like that person. And will be triggered by any possible negative behavior with that person, or at least behavior that I understand being negative in my understanding, because I'm biased. As Krishna says, Krodhat bhavati samohat smriti vipramaha. Smriti bramshat buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. So he says that when there is anger, this agitation, some moha comes, delusion. And because of that delusion, it's like, disconnection from the server. Because I'm an IT engineer, I can exemplify in that perspective. When there is like a disconnection from the server, especially database server, it means smriti bramshat. Smriti, the memory, because of this delusion, memory delusion is like bug in the system. Someone deployed wrong URI, and then the server is not inachievable. And if database means the source of information, memory. And when it's disconnected, then buddhi doesn't work properly, because in order for buddhi to work properly, it should rely on some memory to be able to see the full picture. But anyway, if one is negatively turned to some person, and that person does some negative thing, then one becomes easily agitated by this. And one might think might come to Shyam Dalal and say, Shyam Dalal, you're doing wrong. But Shyam Dalal might say, but Prabhu, this is the way I'm doing. And if I'm already biased, I came to him with kind of not like finding the truth, but with the feeling that I know the truth. I know that he is doing wrong. And this is already a negatively colored feeling. And if I approach him with this guru understanding that I will tell him the truth, how badly he behaves now, there is no space for him to justify himself. And this is how that mechanism working, buddhi nashat pranashyati, because disconnection from the database service. And it means that I stop seeing the whole picture of that personality. I stop seeing how much Shyam Dalal has already done for the community, for devotees, how much sincere service he's doing. I'm not kidding here, he really does that. But when one is agitated, one loses the buddhi, the intelligence. And one stops seeing this picture and only seeing this kind of, that particular negative thing, what he is doing. That in my interpretation is something bad. And I see him, I start seeing him through that perspective. Through that thin, narrow perspective of this seeming drawback. And this is what buddhi nashat pranashyati, and lose my mind. And I start feeling negativity to Shyam Dalal and stop considering him a Vaishnava. Because I only see this. Because if I only see the negative part, how I can see him as a Vaishnava? Does Vaishnava even behave like this? No, he doesn't. Yes, he is a Vaishnava, certainly. But to know, and this is why it's dangerous. And it's not only about having this full picture. And this constructive feedback can be accepted more likely that if I present the whole picture. When one learns the culture of giving feedback, for example, for example, one works on a company, and especially if it comes to Sweden, people do speak about feedback a lot. Feedback culture, giving feedback, receiving feedback. And when one is speaking about feedback, there is some kind of a so-called sandwich principle. What does sandwich principle mean, Shyam Dalal people?
Feedback between two appreciations.
Kind of, yes. When there is like some kind of more constructive between some appreciation, which means that you at least are trying to present the full picture, not defaming and devaluing that person. Because while devaluing, you basically are trying to put yourself above that person at cost of defaming and putting him in a low position and showing that person, presenting him or her to the community, as you see, that's what I've told you. You know, that's the sandwich principle. But it's not only about this, which is also crucial to understand, to practice this full picture understanding. And first, to take it easy, probably relax, and let that emotion you experience go. And then rationally to approach that. Is it even a problem? Considering the full picture, is it a problem? If you still feel that it is a problem, then take some dumbbells and do some biceps exercise. Even after doing biceps exercise, you still, after that, evaluate the system and your understanding, and you still see that this is a problem. Take the dumbbell and do the triceps exercise. And after that, if you don't feel that it's not actually a problem, then check your climbing club subscription. Really do it and join us. We will do it. We do it time to time together with Gaurapal Prabhu. But even after checking your climbing club subscription, you still feel that this is a problem, then you should consider the full picture and also sandwich principle. But there is also another point of consideration is the qualification. Do you actually have the proper, appropriate position to give that feedback to this personality? For example, if I tell Bhaktinidhi Prabhu, Bhaktinidhi, you're doing this, I mean, forget it, better not to do it at all. And Bhaktinidhi Prabhu, what he will tell us? He'll tell me, he said, thank you, Ashoka Krishna Prabhu, for this feedback. I'm very much appreciate that you give me this feedback. Because he's a humble and exalted personality. But what will Krishna and Shishita Gaurasundara think about me after doing this? Because in a way, who am I to give this feedback to Bhaktinidhi? But he, being a good devotee, he will never even consider this, like who I am, who you are, or like this. And this is what actually Srivasa Thakur was feeling in that situation when he was defamed by Gopal Chapal. He didn't take it like personally, oh, how come he could do it. He just immediately accepted because he knows that everything is Krishna's plan. I'm Krishna's aspiring devotee. I'm trying doing my sincere efforts, and that's why Krishna is guiding me at whatever is happening in my life. It's on purpose. Krishna wants to tell me something by this situation. And that was the mood of Srivasa Thakur. That is why the message, I would say, in this regard is that blaspheming devotees, especially being at anger or emotion, like defaming, blaspheming them, is a very dangerous thing to do. It doesn't mean that we should completely avoid any criticism, but we should really, really learn the culture of constructive feedback. Because we are few. And not speaking about me as kind of a high-level devotee or whatever. But we come here in order to help each other to develop Krishna Bhakti, to develop love of God. Independent on which level each of us has this Bhakti, Krishna loves every single one of us. And that's why we always should consider this, and that should always be the reason for us to give it a time and to think what is more important for me, to consider the whole picture or my emotion towards what I've felt in this situation. Doesn't mean that we should completely dismiss our emotion, but we should process it ecologically. We cannot just avoid, because we will feel pain while associating with other people, other devotees. That's natural. We are all different and see the world from different perspectives, and we understand Prabhupada's books from different perspectives. But then we should always leave the space for us to also potentially being wrong about things. Because when I come with criticism, the wrong way to think is that I'm right. Because Shastra says so, that I'm going to tell Shyamdulal how he is contradicting Shastra. But is it really the case that he is contradicting, or maybe I'm misunderstanding something? So we should always be humble about things. So we should turn off the arrogance. If emotion is there, it's there. We should process it. We shouldn't dismiss it, but we should do it ecologically and learn the culture of feedback. Thank you very much. I'll stop here. Any questions or comments? Yes, Mataji.
I want to say about the offense. I think it's always two persons when something happens. No? So I think it's very important we have to take responsibility in our spiritual life. We can only get bhakti through the devotees. No? So I think communication is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And many times things happen to us and this person did this to me. Then we have locked the situation. We have actually made ourselves victims. And the solution doesn't exist because this person did this to me. But if I look at what do I have to learn here? And then things can change completely. You get a different view. But I think we should be brave to communicate.
Yes.
We can go to the person and say, I feel like this, that this happened. Not say you did this. No, I feel like this when you have done this. So communication is everything. I think we should be brave and we have to take responsibility. We will lose taste when we walk around. And then we don't have spiritual life anymore. So this is...
That's a very crucial thing that you mentioned. Thank you. Because because in a way I have incompleted my thought in a way, but you did it so eloquently. Thing is that processing the emotion ecologically basically means what you have said, that we have to communicate that. And not to communicate and approach the person and say, you did that, you are such and such and such, and such and such and such and such. If you approach that with saying that, I'm feeling like this, but can we speak about it? I need to know more context about it.
Actually, when we say, we don't, it's like easy to say this.
Yeah.
It's so easy to go to someone and talk.
Yes.
We avoid this. No? So that's why we're being brave, no? But many times there's just things in the mind. Maybe this person didn't think about this at all, no?
Mm.
So it's, many things can be so big, but it's actually nothing, no? Also.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes we have to strive to sort it out, if it is possible. Sometimes it isn't. If it isn't, then it isn't.
Yeah.
We can just restrict our communication with the person. That's also natural and normal. But at least we should strive for kind of establishing the communication. And sometimes I'm just afraid to approaching that person directly. I might ask someone for advice, for example, how to sort it out. For someone, some authority above these people, or some mentor. So sometimes I can take advice how to deal it in the situation. Yeah, but ultimately we should try establishing the relationship properly. Yes, yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you so much for raising this topic, and I mean it's so amazing. There's so many different tools to deal with this, and Vaishnava etiquette is one of them, and also it comes to mind, you know, the classic quote from Lord Jesus Christ is like, if you are free from sin, you throw the first stone. And if we take it in a Vaishnava, with Vaishnava interpretation, it's like, are you free from karma? How many lives have you had? Have you done anything wrong ever? So if you're free from karma, then criticize. But if you're not, then maybe I should see, you know, would I actually be able to not do that offense that this person had done, and when was the last time that I did an offense? And so basically, like, make a quick inventory of myself. And also, you know, it's like everyone has their karma and life experiences, like a backpack, and sometimes those things clash with other people's life experiences. So in one way, it's like, maybe it's me being allergic. Maybe it's nothing wrong with them, but it's just me being sensitive or traumatized or allergic to certain things. That just reminds me of maybe a life experience from this life or another life that just triggers me.
That might be the case, yeah. For example, my personal traumatic experience that makes me being triggered by something which is completely normal. But at the same time, like speaking from, I would allow myself not to agree with Jesus Christ. Okay, I'm kidding. Not like completely, but still the tricky part about it, like for example, let's see, we have a community here, yeah? And I know that I have plenty of like negative qualities in my heart. But there is some personality that maybe out of subconsciously, unconsciously, out of ignorance or some behavior that they are not accepting, start like behaving in a way that many people are suffering because of that behavior. And if I will just say like, or just remain silent because I myself has so much like in my heart, so drawbacks, then I will not say anything because I'm not qualified for that. That's not right either, you know. We have to raise that question, but also do it in an ecological way. Not like go and fighting with that person immediately, even though you know, feel prepared after doing those exercises, as I told you, like biceps, triceps. But at the same time, yeah, we should deal with this and raise the question that people are suffering, and we somehow should sort it out, because sometimes it can be someone who has the position to approach that person, like, please, you know, you're a wonderful person, the sandwich principle, but it feels like many people feel a bit agitated because of your behavior. And if that person understands, then good. If not, then some other measures should be taken. Any more questions? Mataji.
It's very interesting in this our talk here that how did actually Srivasa Pandit react when the devotees came to him and they say, you know, you have to forgive the Gopajapa. You have to forgive him, you know. And he said, what do I have to forgive? I mean, who can offend me? I'm lower than the lowest. You know, there's no reason why. And then there was arguing back and forth. And then the argument came from the devotees. They said, okay, if you don't forgive him, then he has to continue his suffering life after life after life. Do you really want to be guilty of that? No. And then he sent him to she was Pandit and he got forgiveness, and then after that he got love of Krishna from Lord Chaitanya.
Yes, but he is.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's amazing, and we should definitely take examples, but at the same time, understanding what personality he was and which level of ego, false ego, devotional level we are at currently. Are we able to have the same feeling like I'm the lower of the lowest, and how someone, because we usually get quite easily offended, and we just have to deal with it. And yeah, if I feel something, I feel something. I honestly feel that, and I have to work on it. Don't not dismissing the feeling. Oh, it's just materialistic. I'm the Srivasa Thakur, but all these feelings is just some kind of waves of the ocean. I'm not this. No, we kind of are this currently, in a way. Some more. Frågor. Yes, Prabhuji.
I think it's also about understanding what is the objective while giving feedback, isn't it? So what is the result you want to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the end, it also depends who you are talking to. Is it someone with a devotee mindset? Then perhaps you have a better connection and you can have a bit more sandwich way of talking.
Mm-hmm.
But then if there is someone who doesn't really care, and then you are in a conflict situation with that sort of a person who doesn't really want to listen, then so I feel there could be different ways of handling based on who you talk to. But as long as you can keep your objective and the end result and based on your own knowledge, do you really have knowledge in that area that you're giving feedback? So, but of course it becomes easier to talk to a devotee.
Yes.
Then, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That we should always keep the objective. An objective might be that we want the ecological relationship between devotees, and someone is just disturbing the atmosphere and something, and we want to approach that person, and not because of myself that I don't like, but objective means that I have sincere desire to improve things for the sake of a better atmosphere, for devotees to be able to comfortably serving Krishna, doing their service, chanting together. Yes, and then if I have this mood of being humble and being serious at the same time, and wanting to solve it, then I will have intelligence for doing this. There will not be any negative emotions. But if I'm doing out of my ego being disturbed and injured, then there is a high chance of me being agitated and forgetting about the being overly emotional means that you start like saying some bad words to that person, and start devaluating him. What kind of a devotee you are if you're doing like this? But that's kind of emotion, and you first want to process it and approach it in a more cultural way. But yeah, thank you. Maybe the final thing.
Yeah, last thing. So yeah, I was thinking about like when it comes to Vaishnava etiquette, it says that like if I'm gonna give an instruction or correct someone, I have to have a personal relationship with that person. I have to know this devotee.
Mm-hmm.
I have to know if we are on the same level. Is it senior or junior? It's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes some training actually, and sometimes it's not me. I can't correct it because this person will not take in the information for different reasons, and then maybe it's better that someone else does it. So sometimes I have to turn it over
Mhm.
And also my other thing was like setting boundaries is also loving. It's sometimes love is to be just soft, but sometimes love is also hard, or like setting boundaries. And then after that, when you sorted something out, your relationship will actually be stronger and more serious.
Mhm. Yeah, I will not comment on that because it's true. But I think it's now getting late, so I will stop here. Thank you very much for your attention and your very nice questions and comments. I would actually want to stop here, Mataji. Yeah, sorry. So, Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki
Jai.
Shri Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Shri Srivasa Thakur ki
Jai.
Shri Panchatattva ki
Jai.
Jai Gaura Premanand